This segment is brought to you by JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
Hello and welcome back to the Paddle and Fin podcast. I'm Brian.
It's Josh.
Ryan and
I'm Jay.
Dustin Nichols.
It's Ricketts.
And I'm Brad.
Susie Roloff.
Sam Jones. Got Dan Perry with
The Bass Fishing for Noobs.
Final Cast.
Chasing the Tide saltwater segment here on
Adventures with Outdoor Women.
The Reel Down on.
He's got
As Cyber Monday.
Oh, yeah, dude.
happy birthday, you listeners.
Oh, guys. This is a stud.
He is the giant.
Mr. Drew Gregory himself. Welcome, Drew.
Got it.
Got me.
What's going on, everybody? I'm going to apologize right now because I've been battling a cold. So bear with me. Hopefully I don't lose my voice here. But got a pretty epic guest this evening, as I'm sure most of you have seen on the good old interwebs. But real quick, guys, gals, everybody watching this evening, go ahead, smash that share button, please. Let's spread the love, build an audience here. I see we got Robert Whetstone. Hope I didn't butcher that last name. And Brock Hall in the chat already this evening. What's up, fellas? Good to see you guys back in action. I'm sure most of you guys saw this morning we released the new Bass Fishing for Noobs segment. Mr. Milford over there added a co-host. So we want to welcome our man, Sean, to the Paddle and Fin family. Saw a lot of interaction over there. I know those guys were talking about maybe starting a little, month-long tournament for new fishermen. How we're going to work that, I don't know. I'm leaving that up to Ryan. But I think it's a cool thing. We got a lot of positive feedback. So those of you that tune in to the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment may not be familiar with the kayak fishing tournament world. That may be a cool little option for you all to jump in on. What else do we got on the docket? Worked the Wisconsin Fishing Show this last weekend. Met a lot of listeners up that way. Folks I've already known, met some new folks, things like that. But I got a pretty powerful story for you guys. This occurred Sunday. Sorry, I'm looking at my phone because I want to bring this young man's name up to you all the right way. But 12-year-old kid walks into the booth with his mom, and we were chatting a little bit, and he was wearing a hat, and it was pretty unique little hat. And this kid, I thought he was like 10 or 11 years old. See if we could put this up here. That was the hat he was wearing. So I says to the young man, "What's RSF stand for?" And he said, Russell Strong Fishing. And I was like, "Oh, never heard of it. What's that all about?" Says, "That's my brand." And I was like, "What?" Like, kid's 12 years old, man. And told me a story. He's got a brain tumor that is in the back of his brain and runs down his spine. Fishing is his passion. Little dude starting his own fishing brand. And we sat there and chatted fishing for a really long time. He's got ambitions to start a YouTube channel. I told him I'd bring him up on the podcast here because I wanted to blow him up. So if you guys go on Instagram, his Instagram is Nessie, Nessie, Muscles 3. And little dude's amazing, man. He's got an amazing story. So everybody just please go give this kid a follow. We're talking about possibly doing a podcast here. I told him I wanted to do whatever I could to help him and his brand out. I'm going to save all the rest of the backstory and everything like that for when we get that young man on here. But if you guys could go give him a follow on Instagram, it would be much, much appreciated. Told you guys I got to drink some water, man. My voice is going. One last thing I just wanted to talk about, and I'm not going into detail. I've been asked 100 times, so I'm going to say it right here publicly, whatever. The whole hog trough thing, I got no comment. I'm not a tournament judge. I'm not a tournament director. It's not my place. I worry about my fishing. I think a lot more people need to worry about their own fishing. I think with all the controversy and all the crap that's going around online, all it does is hurt our sport. I know Ron Champion. He's a real good dude. I got no comment. So with that being said, there's my statement. Other than that, I don't care. Just go out and fish. Thank you. So without further ado, let's bring in my man, Brad. We're going to be talking about the Jonny Boat this evening, hunting and fishing from it. He's doing some really unique, cool things. So without further ado, Mr. Brad himself. What's up, brother?
What's going on, man?
Sorry to lead into you with that last little soiree.
That's all right. Just turn the tides a little.
I mean, I had to, lighten the mood a little bit.
Right, exactly.
But
next on 2020.
Yeah. Well, we got to keep it entertaining around here, But you and I have known each other for what? I don't know. We met last year at the Wisconsin Fishing Expo. I think that's where we first met.
Right, through your recycled plastics program for Heroes on the Water.
Yes, that is it. Well, not my program. Eric
right.
Richards, Hammered Lures. We'll touch on that at the end of the episode. But, you were doing some unique things, working with Heroes on the Water, stuff like that. We got to chat and we fished together for the KBF event. Well, I should say pre-fished. But, yeah, it was good.
Yeah, we explored some water. It was a good time.
Yeah, I like that little stretch of river we hit. That was pretty special.
Agreed.
I mean, you caught the bigger fish. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, if I wouldn't have made the mistake of fished the lake and just stayed in the river, it'd have been a better tournament. But that's all right.
Yeah, I hear you, dude. That's how it goes, my man. So, for those that don't know you, why don't you give us a quick rundown, how you got into fishing, why you chose a kayak. I know you got many different kayaks, and then the Jonny Boat, and we'll kind of transition there, man.
So I grew up fishing. My dad took me fishing when I was younger. He was a big bass, musky fisherman. So I grew up with boats my whole life, and I've had, probably a dozen different boats between John boats and deep V boats and things along those lines. And I've always also had a canoe, and I really did a lot of fishing from canoe. I like the simplicity of it, but it had its drawbacks when you were alone. I mean, it's hard to paddle a canoe solo.
Yeah.
And that's really what led me to kayaks. But I've always been searching for that boat, that kayak boat, skiff, whatever, that could do everything I do and actually do it well. And that's what led me to Jonny. It really is.
Yeah. I know, because you got the native Ultimate, right? Ultimate 12.
I have an Ultimate FX12, Pro Angler 14. My wife's got an Old Town Sorrento 126. I have an Old Town Osprey 15.5 canoe.
Nice. I mean, when I started out as a kid, I started with an inflatable boat and then moved to a 15-foot Coleman canoe that I used to rooftop on a Ford Taurus. Baddest Ford Taurus on the road, but
was it a wagon?
No, not a wagon. It was like the sport coupe, bro. Come on, give me a little credit.
The show. Old school show with the ground effects.
No, it wasn't a show. It wasn't a show. I wasn't cool enough for the show, but yeah, either way, I mean, I completely get where you're coming from. paddling a canoe by yourself, unless it's a one-man canoe, which I think Old Town's got that Discovery now, where it's kind of like that crossover between a kayak and a canoe,
They do.
which is pretty cool.
I,
I know we've sold a few at the shop already.
I looked at that. I just kind of like the FX12 a little better. I like that
Sure.
catamaran style hull to give me the little more stability for standing, but that's still great paddability of a kayak.
Yeah. I dig it, man. I dig it. So, I mean, you do more than just fishing, and we'll touch on that. But I mean, what really drew you to the Jonny Boat, other than the versatility? Was it certain features? Was it the fact that you could rig up
Sure.
the motor or whatever that you got on there?
It was the fact that that boat could actually do everything I wanted. So, I mean, I can bass fish out of it. And I mean, I have quite a few accessories for it already. I mean, I bought the steerable trolling motor pod right away, knowing that my plan for that was also fishing. So
Okay.
with the 8-ball control for that mounted right to the stand-up bar, I can run it like a bass boat.
That's slick.
I mean, I can steer right when standing. So fishing short, and I'm a shallow water fisherman. I always have been.
Yeah.
So pitching weed lines, pitching reeds, frogging in thick cover. I mean, to me, to be able to work that cover without ever having to sit down,
Yeah, that's awesome.
that drew me to it. But then the fact you can run a 2.5 horsepower motor on it, 3 horsepower, 2.5.
Well, I mean,
So
you go ahead. Sorry, man. Go ahead.
no. So I mean it's just that whole, like, this boat does everything I need.
No, I totally get that, man. I mean, you do something unique. I'm going to pull this up here. You kind of sent me this picture. See if I get this to rotate in right. So this picture down in the bottom right here, guys, is Brad's little rig here of the Jonny Boat with the stand-up bar. And I mean, it's a pretty slick little vessel, man. But I mean, the cool thing about it is, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, was you're doing more than just fishing out of it. And don't get me wrong, I love fishing out of a kayak. I love the bass fishing tournaments and things like that. But I think the big thing in our kind of like little niche kayak fishing community is people don't realize some of the avenues that are out there and available. And that's one thing I wanted to highlight this year. Like you don't hear a ton of people talking about overnight camping trips or hunting from a kayak, and things like that. I know that's something that my man Jay Randall is huge on trying to get into. He's been doing a lot of skeet shooting and stuff to get ready for next season's duck and goose season. And we've always talked about having somebody on that hunts from a kayak, just because he wanted to learn. But I was like, man, I don't know who I know. And then I was like, saw you over the weekend. And I'm like, dude, like, we've been meaning to look for somebody like this. And it's not something that's talked about a ton. But I think it's interesting, especially, you're from Wisconsin, the Madison area. Obviously, the further north you get, there's quite a bit of duck and goose hunters. And I'm not discounting the South. I mean, come on. I watched Duck Dynasty too, right? But, I think it's something unique that gets you back into some of those sloughs and stuff. Like, I've talked to you about, you're like, I'm going out to the Mississippi River, or I'm going up on the Yahara because I can get into some spots where some of the duck boats can't go. So, I mean, when did it really hit you that you were like, hey, I should try this out of a kayak?
As soon as I saw it, I knew it was for me. I mean, as soon as I saw you could put a motor on it, I'm like, well, I don't want that 2.5 horsepower Suzuki. I want a 3 horsepower longtail mud motor.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want an outboard. I want to be able to churn weeds and go run this thing through a marsh. So, I mean, I had the mud motor purchased before I ever picked up the boat.
That's hilarious. I remember talking to you about that. So, I mean, how is it on space and stuff? Because, I mean, obviously you're duck hunting, you're bringing decoys. Like, what's your process of getting set up, and what all are you bringing out there with you?
So for duck hunting, I mean, my standard layout for duck hunting is I'm running that 3 horsepower mini swamp runner mud motor. And then I've cut it down, the handle down. So I pretty much lose my entire tank well, other than being able to put a blind bag back there, just because of how a mud motor steers. I mean, you have that really long swing, so you can't have anything high in your tank well. And then the rest of the layout, I mean, is standard. I mean, I bring my gun inside it's got a really big fixed pod in the
Okay.
center pod.
Yeah.
So I have a 9 amp an hour SLA battery in there, and then I run 2 9-watt cube lights, like the LED little square spotlights.
Mm-hmm.
So I have those mounted on the tracks for running at night, and that just plugs right into the pod. Super simple. And then all my pods, my dry storage, extra shotgun shells, wallet, keys, stuff like that. And then decoys vary on whatever I'm deciding to hunt. I mean, I've hauled a dozen goose floaters out in that thing.
Wow. Interesting. So that pod, I apologize to you. I've never been up close and personal to a Jonny Boat. I haven't seen your rig up close and personal. That pod, does it fully remove, kind of like the Bonafides do?
It does. That center pod fully removes, and the steering trolling motor pod replaces it.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
So
right.
I mean, I pop out the standard pod, and then for fishing, to like swap to a trolling motor setup for me, and no mud motor, just
Mhm.
an actual. I mean, I unbolt the mud motor, which is 2 bolts, 5 minutes. I pull that center pod out, and then that steering trolling motor pod, I run an amped 55 amp hour battery, which was designed to fit in that pod. My Garmin 93 is mounted to that pod, so that pod is self-contained. I drop it in, my electronics, my trolling motor, my battery, all right there. No wires, no anything.
Yeah, I remember when I was running Bonafides, my 127. That's how I had my depth finder all set up. Like, you pulled the little rubber tab back in the front of it, little flap in the back, put the whole pod, battery, depth finder, everything in the back of the truck, and it was nice and safe.
Right.
I mean, that's super cool, man. So what's the overall length of that boat?
10 feet, 10 feet 6, 10 feet 4. It's short. It's a small boat.
Interesting.
Like that's been a really big. So I haven't gotten too much time on the water fishing with it because I picked it up so late in the year. I got a ton of time under it with the motor and duck hunting. But I went out and I did take it out on Mendota trolling for walleyes, and it was a little bit of an eye opener being out there in white caps coming from a PA-14 to a 10-foot little Jonny Boat, man.
Yeah, I'm sure there's quite a bit of a difference there, man. I mean, I don't know, 10-foot boats seem like they could be squirrely. I mean, have you paddled that thing, or you just usually run the electric?
So that picture you had was me paddling. And then on the back of the kayak, so when I'm running the trolling motor pod or paddling, it's got 2 fins in the back, not rudders, just fixed fins, one on each side.
Okay.
That are on bungees that hold them down. So they act like skegs. So it actually tracks really straight.
Interesting.
And those skegs pay huge dividends when running the trolling motor. So you're not sliding all over the place.
Yeah, that's pretty slick, man. Like I said, I haven't seen it up close and personal, but just some of the features I've seen. I think the first time I saw it, they just released it at ICAST last year or something, right?
Correct.
Or was it 2 years ago? I don't know. Either way.
2 years ago, because I know I had the first one in the area.
Okay. And what shop up there carries those? I forget. You always tell me the name of it.
Small Craft Outfitters.
Okay. Where are they located?
Just outside of Eau Claire in Spring Valley.
Okay. So right up on that west side of the state, up off the Mississippi. Very cool. What's the overall width of that boat?
34 inches, I believe.
Ooh.
I should have really wrote this down.
That's kind of narrow.
36.
No, you're good, man. You're good. I didn't tell you I was going to drill you with all the specs. So
that's all right. It's 77 pounds too, which I like because it's light.
That is light. Super light.
Because I have to rooftop it in summer when I'm going fishing because I pull my travel trailer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, I lose the whole bed of my truck. I can't have my tailgate down. So rooftopping that PA-14 got old pretty quick.
I can imagine, 77 pounds, 140, it's like
130 stripped down as much as I could.
Glad it's you and not me. Then again, I've put a blue sky on top of my travel trailer. So guess not. But yeah, man. So we got a question down here in the chat. I'll put it up on the screen. My man Brad Hicks is asking, is the Jonny Boat KBF legal without the 2.5 horsepower motor? Of course.
To the best of my knowledge, it is. I have inquired and haven't heard back, and I have not seen it officially listed as an exemption.
Okay. Okay.
The Jonny Boat right now is not marketed as a kayak.
Gotcha.
The marketing specifically says it is not a kayak, it is not a skiff, it's a Jonny Boat. So without seeing that official exemption, I don't want to tell anybody it is. I have seen on the forums that KBF has said they will allow it. But I'd like to see that officially listed as an exemption, like the Blue Sky or the Solo Skiff now as an exemption.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I get that question all the time. That's not a kayak, bro. And I'm like, you're right. It isn't, you know? But I mean, it falls in the kayak family. And I think you and I were talking about that because you were thinking about using it at the Madison tournament, right? If you got your boat in time and stuff.
I was.
And I remember you had reached out to somebody and, you know, never heard back. And it was kind of one of those things that, you know, was kind of up in the air. But I mean, in my opinion, I don't see why it wouldn't be allowed. I mean, I guess obviously if you're in the case you're using the mud tiller or the 2.5 horsepower motor,
Right,
probably not so
yeah.
legal. But I mean, it falls within all the length and width specs, so I don't know how they could discount it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
I have been told no by some certain trails because it is not marketed as a kayak. It was a firm no.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Like I said.
But those are the same trails that aren't going to allow your Blue Sky.
Yeah. Damn those people. Talking to you, Alan Wiedemeyer. I get it, man. You know, I get both sides of it. You know,
So do I.
That was the one thing that was brought up. Well, I brought it up. You know, I'm fishing Kayak Bass League, local league here. And I was like, you going to let me fish out of Blue Sky this year? And he's like, no, you know, because in those smaller club levels, that's where you're getting a lot of the folks that are just getting into kayak fishing, right?
Right.
So, I mean, the way that Alan had kind of put it to me, and I'm going off quote and memory, so I could get some of this wrong, but he's like, you know, you got a new guy that's new to kayak fishing, comes into this, sees you fishing out of, you know, off the pier with a seat on it, floating down the river or lake, you know, that could be kind of intimidating if the guy's showing up in a, you know, 10-foot Pelican or
like the Trophy Beach I started in.
Yeah.
Or the Future Beach, Beach Trophy.
Hey, man,
handler, yeah.
I had a Pelican Mustang 100X, bro. And that was a badass little boat. I won't lie. But, you know, it just got me off the bank and out of the water. And then obviously, you know, now I run a 6-7 day a week podcast and fish tournaments and all that crap. So yeah, what a downward spiral from a $200 kayak. But I mean, I get it. You know, it's like you don't want to intimidate those, you know, guys that are just coming into that grassroots level. And I totally get it.
I have no animosity. There's no hard feelings. I mean,
yeah,
it's not marketed as a kayak, and I completely understand that. And I knew getting into the Jonny Boat that I would face hurdles if I really wanted to chase trails with it.
Sure.
I knew that.
Sure. But I mean, you got a Hobie PA14 to fall back on.
Right. Well, that actually did just get sold. That is gone now. I do have the Ultimate FX12.
Okay. Very cool. Well, I mean, that's just it. You know, I told Alan, I was like, I made fun of the situation. And that was basically me making fun of myself because I do fish out of the Blue Sky. And trust me, dude, if it was my choice, I'd fish every tournament, every chance I get, I fish out of that thing just because I love it. It's comfortable. It suits my needs for exactly what I do. But so I made a joke and I told him I was going to show up to every tournament in a different boat. The first tournament would be a 15-foot touring kayak. So like, I just don't know how I'll measure and like take photos of my fish, but it'll be a lot of fun, you know?
You'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out on the fly.
Every single time you catch a fish.
Yeah, so I mean, it is what it is. I totally get where, some of the restrictions come from, especially at that grassroots level, right? I mean,
Right.
some clubs are like, yeah, we don't care what you fish out of, just come fish with us. And some are like, no, we want to kind of ease back on that. So, I mean, I guess you kind of answered my next question, and that was going to be like, how do you feel about that whole situation with it not being accepted? I mean, me personally, like I said, it's just like it's within all the specifications. So I don't know how you can not allow it, so to speak.
I understand the line they drew. I mean, it's a very, in my mind, it's a simple line.
Yeah.
They want kayaks, and it's not marketed as a kayak. And I
Yeah.
understand that. I mean, to me, it's that simple. If it was marketed as a kayak and I was told no, maybe a slightly different story, different feelings there, but it's not. The marketing is, this is not a kayak. It's not a skiff. I mean, they're marketing, it's a Jonny Boat. It's unique. It's different.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, man. Totally agree. And that's one thing, man. Fishing, that's one of the reasons why I got into the blue sky, because it was different. It was unique. There wasn't a ton of people fishing in it. And I'll be honest, and I think I've told that on here before, is when we unboxed that boat, I think it came in like December, January, right before the fishing shows last year. I was like, man, this is kind of slick. And I told Travis, the guy at the shop, like, I don't think I could fish out of this because I won't get out of it. And then come springtime, me and my man Jay Randall went out fishing during the spawn, and I grabbed it from the shop. I'm like, I should try it out. I should be able to talk about all these different boats on the podcast, so that way I can relate to guests and listeners and things like that. I mean, I've spent a lot of different time in a lot of different boats. And sure enough, man, I told Jay after I caught the first fish, I'm like, I'm hooked. I'm not getting out.
You're done.
I'm done.
You're sold.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool, man. I've had a blast fishing in it and seeing what kind of trouble I can get into, like as far as like shallow rivers, thick weed mats, things like that. And I haven't had anything that really stopped me yet. I mean, that's the nice thing about it. And I'm sure it's the same way with the Jonny Boat,
Well, the Johnny's a little different, especially running that mud motor.
Oh, yeah.
I really haven't found anything that's stopped me yet.
We should get you one of those like air-powered boats, like a huge fan on the back.
But like
that way you could,
yeah. There you go.
That way you could really get back in those marshes, man.
I mean, that boat floats. I mean, it's shallow. I mean, even with a full load, I run shallow.
Yeah. How much do you think, even with it full weight, like how much are you sinking down into the water?
4 to 6 inches, maybe.
Okay.
It's shallow. I mean, it's not very much. I mean, it's loaded, but it's not that much.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing with the blue sky. It's like 3-4 inches, if that. I mean, the weight is distributed evenly across there. So
the only difference is you're trying to pedal, and I'm running a mud motor that can tear right through those lily pads.
Well, if everything works out, we just Jackson just released the Flex Drive E, so I might have a little motor on the old BSB this year as well. So
there you go.
I mean,
might as well.
It's coming. It'll happen. So, but yeah, man. I mean, so what are you looking forward to doing this year out of the Jonny Boat? I mean, you got any big plans, big trips, things like that?
Big trips, no, but I'm really planning on I'm not just a bass fisherman.
Yeah.
I do so many different things. I also don't do just their standard bass fishing. So come spring for the carp, when the carp start spawning, I'm going to be out there back in the marshes with the bow. I'm going to go out there bow fishing for sure.
Yeah. That'll be.
I mean, that's guaranteed. I'll definitely fish some bass, but come that June, July, when the smallie action really heats up on the Wisconsin River, I am really looking forward to that because I no longer need. You'd be surprised how hard it is to find 2 or 3 guys to go with you out there to put a shuttle together.
Interesting.
I mean, everybody's busy. Schedules don't align between tournaments, family commitments. It's pretty hard. I mean, you can't just be like, "Hey, it's going to be really nice tomorrow. Let's go run the river."
Right.
Oh, I got this. Now with that mud motor, I don't need a shuttle.
Yeah. You can go up
I'll
and
just
down.
grab a couple rods, a couple 3700s. I mean, I'll bring the fly rod with, and I'll bring one standard casting rod with me and a couple 3700s and a handful of flies. And I'll launch nice and early in the morning, run hour up river, and then just float my way back. So it's going to open up all that excellent shallow water smallmouth fishing for me on the Wisconsin.
You got extra room for a big 6'4" fat guy in the back? I mean, damn.
No, I think I might have an old tow rope, though, from like an old tube when I had a boat.
I could see it now. Jonny Boat pulling an inner tube with my big. It'd be funny. That's a YouTube video waiting to go viral.
Oh, yeah. You'll get some more. You'll get someone to smash that subscribe button for sure.
Speaking of which, let's do a little house cleaning. I see we got Doug Mosley in the chat, brother. My man, I am coming to Texas. I will be down there beginning of April. I will hit you up. If you guys are just tuning in, we're talking to my man Brad here. He's fishing out of the Jonny Boat. He's also hunting out of it, so we're talking a little bit about that. If you guys could go down, hit that share button. Just let everybody know what's going on over here at the old Paddle and Fin. Also, I'm going to mention there is a post on our Facebook page. It's something for the Media Summit of 2020. I don't know. Saw it posted somewhere. Saw somebody put our name on the list. Go give us a vote over there. We'd much appreciate it. It'd be cool to see us, be in somewhat contention. I know Kayak Bass Fishing's in there, and a few other folks that I've heard of as well. So go give that a vote. Yeah, man. So getting back to it, man. So you're going to definitely do Wisconsin River. You got
Absolutely.
Specific hunting trips you're planning on doing out of that bad boy this year?
Specific, not really. I mean, spring I'll start doing a little more scouting. I mean, I got it pretty late in the year. I ran it enough where I'm comfortable with it, but spring I'll do some scouting in spring. I mean, that's when I'll go chase carp too. I mean, same areas, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll go explore the same water. I'll bring the bow with, and if I'm out there poking around, I'll let an arrow fly or two, and get some GPS coordinates figured out. Figure out what's going on.
Interesting.
I want to run some smaller rivers. Some of the more really, I don't know if you want to call it technical, but just small rivers where you're not going to get a standard sized John boat in.
Yeah.
And even some of those small little offshoots off the marshes where you run it for a couple 100, 300, 400 yards, and all of a sudden it opens up to a little bit of a pocket where the birds really want to be.
Yeah. Interesting. I've never duck or goose hunted. I know we talked about it, man. I need to get up there and give it an old whirl with the old 12 gauge. I
wouldn't say it's my primary passion anymore for hunting. I mean, bird hunting really is, but
yeah,
it's more of a secondary thing. Really, in fall, I chase grouse and woodcock with my dogs. That's my main passion.
You got 3 dogs, right?
Two. I have an old lab who I retired this past season. He might do another easy hunt come next year, but he'll be 13 by then, and his hips just aren't there anymore.
Gotcha.
And then I got my Pippa, wired hair Griff, crazy little bearded dog, and she's just a terror out there. She's amazing.
That's awesome.
I do plan on doing some scouting for that though come spring. I do plan on using the Jonny Boat, which taking her up different rivers to access different spots of public land that people can't get to.
Interesting. Well, I know the Mississippi River's got like some islands and stuff that you can hunt off of, right?
Oh,
like
absolutely.
Up north there.
I've done quite a bit of hunting around Pool. What would that be? Pool 8.
Yeah,
so
Pool 8.
I spent an entire season out there one year chasing a pintail, which I finally got.
Nice.
That's kind of the last season. I hunted ducks this past season, but that season really did burn me out. I mean, I drove every weekend to the Mississippi. I took all my vacation time and spent it on the Mississippi, all chasing that one bird. And I finally got it, which was great. It was like that icing on the cake. But
yeah, right.
That next season rolled around, and I'm like, I got to do something different this year.
Very cool, man. What about fishing tournaments? You fishing some clubs? You gonna fish some nationals? What are you sticking close to home? What are your thoughts there, man?
I don't know what I'm going to fish, if I'm going to fish any nationals. I'm going to reach out to Bass and see if they'll allow the Jonny Boat, because I got to get an exemption from them, see what their thoughts are on it. I have no idea which way that's going to fall, but Bass will be on the Mississippi River. So if I get an exemption, I'll go fish Bass. Couple Wisconsin Kayak Fishing Club tournaments. I'll do a couple of those.
Okay.
Those are super low key, fun, awesome, great tournaments just to like hang out with people. You're still competitive, but I don't know. I kind of refer to it as like social competition. like it's just as much about the camaraderie as it is about the actual fishing tournament.
I mean, that's the best part of fishing tournaments, right? Is just, meeting new people, hanging out with the guys and gals that are fishing it, and, sharing fishing stories, But,
absolutely.
Yeah, I kind of brainwashed some of the young youth of Madison and surrounding areas over the weekend. We had a little thing set up in our booth, and the kids had to go to these different booths to get a stamp, and then they got some free baits. So I was messing with some kids, and I was like, who catches bigger fish, you or your dad? And once you answer this, I'll stamp your card. And then they would just like look at their dad and then be like, yeah, he does. There was a couple kids that were ballsy enough to be like, oh, I catch all the fish. And then the other one was I was like, what's the biggest fish you ever caught? And, they'd be like, oh, like this. And I'm like, no, when a fisherman asks you how big of a fish you caught, it's this big, and spread your arms as far as they'll go. So, I taught a couple kids how to tell fish stories over the last weekend, which was kind of amusing, and the dads got a kick out of it, so it was pretty cool. But
it was pretty neat how they did that. I mean, it was a great way for them to showcase the entire show, but it was pretty neat how they had you asking questions and everything else. And
yeah, absolutely. And that's how I met, if you guys are just tuning in at the beginning of the podcast, I mentioned a young man, 12-year-old man, and he came over for that exact reason. And if you guys just tuned in, go back, watch. You need to go follow this young man's Instagram page. But, it's crazy, man. You just never know who you're going to meet. I don't know, man. I've been thinking about that ever since I left the show yesterday. It's just kind of got me all, I don't know, messed up,
man.
You
right in the feels, man.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. When he was telling me his story, I mean, the hair on my arms stood up, and it's kind of doing the same thing right now. So, but yeah, man. So, what else you want to plug, man? I mean, I'm pretty much drilled you with all the questions. You got anything else?
Not really. I mean, the Jonny Boat's just if you're looking for that. If you're not looking for a standard kayak, I mean, it's a really cool platform.
Yeah.
I mean, with just me and that mud motor, I hit 6 miles an hour.
In a 10-foot boat.
In a 10-foot boat. With a dozen decoys, my blind bag, the blind, the shotgun, all my gear, me fully loaded, dressed up, waders, the whole deal, churning through the marsh, dozen decoys, 4.5 miles an hour.
That's crazy, dude.
Which it doesn't seem fast when you're doing it. That's the crazy part. Like, 4.5 miles an hour just doesn't seem that fast, right? Until you're out there with a buddy who's also in a kayak paddling, and you're like, oh, we're going to go down this way, turn this point, we're going to go hunt this bay. And you turn around when you're ready to turn the corner, and you can barely see him. He's so far behind you. It took that type of comparison to realize, all right, this thing's pretty cool.
That is slick, dude. That is slick. Just pop that picture of his boat up back on the screen for you guys to all check out. I mean,
that was the first time it was in the water right there. That was the first weekend.
No kidding. Where was that at? Was that up in Madison Chain or Mississippi?
No, that was up by Spring Valley, up by Tyler. Small craft. I went up and met him, and we actually wound up camping that weekend up there, my wife and I and the dogs. And I'm like, well, I'll pick up my kayak and we'll go fishing that Sunday. I think it was a Sunday that day because we went up over Labor Day.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah, I know I see Robert Whetstone. I mentioned him earlier. I apologize if I mess up your last name there, my man. But he said he just ordered a new boat from the same outfitter that you got yours from as well. So Looks like
He's a great guy to work with. He really goes that extra mile, like really to make sure you're set up how you want to be set up.
very cool. I like it. I mean, that's how we do it at our shop. I think that's the best way to do business is just, be real with people and get them in what they want to feel comfortable in and things like that. Instead of pushing them towards, whatever dead inventory you got laying around your shop. It's just not a way to do business,
It's hard to get repeat customers when you push customers into the wrong boat to begin with.
Yeah. And then, they come back and they want to tell you to take the kayak you sold them and shove it where the sun don't shine. It's never really a good thing, you know what I mean? But yeah, man, I mean, it is what it is. But what do we got here? I'm just reading the comments real quick. Doug Mosley just ordered a new big rig. Congrats. His wife is getting a Coosa. Dig it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, WKFC is a great group of people. That came from Robert as well. Yeah, right on. Very cool, man. But why don't you tell everybody where they can go and follow you, man, and watch along where you're taking all your adventures and things like that, man.
So Facebook is Brad Hurlebaus Outdoors. It's a page. Go like it. It's a bunch of random stuff. It's I don't know. It pretty much stays focused hunting and fishing because I keep that off my personal page.
Sure.
So I put all my hunting and fishing adventures on there. Instagram is Wisconsin_fishing_hunting, I believe. Or it's Wisconsin_hunting_fishing. I don't remember which order it is off the top of my head.
It's one of the two.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's fishing and hunting. You should be able to find it through my Facebook page. It all cross posts and links anyways. Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit more of that's not just hunting and fishing. It's still pretty hunting and fishing, but I'll post some more family stuff on there, more dog stuff, more crazy adventures, like camping trips down to Missouri, stuff like that.
Very cool, man. Very cool. I dig it. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out this evening away from the wife and the dogs and everything to jump on and chat with us and get the good word out about the Jonny Boat, talk about a little something different, hunting from a kayak, things like that, man.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if anybody's in the Wisconsin area and wants to demo it, hit me up. Anybody's welcome to run my boat.
I want to try that mud tiller.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun.
I'm sure it is.
I mean, it's easy to run. It's not hard. It's kind of cool going 6 miles an hour in a kayak.
Torpedo ain't got nothing on me.
I'm hoping to get a little more speed out of it. I picked up a couple different prop pitches to try to play with speed because why not?
That's Brad to a T. Why not? Let's give this a shot.
That's kind of how I don't know. It's just fun. I mean, I do a little bit of everything: hunting, fishing.
I dig it.
I mean, multi-species. I do plan on taking that out on Lake Michigan for trolling for salmon. I'm going to take a 10-foot kayak out there. I'll pick my days carefully. I'll probably stay within the break. I will absolutely stay within the break walls for out there on that. But
right.
That might be one of my first adventures come spring. I mean, as soon as the harbors thaw in the Milwaukee area, I'll probably go out there and chase browns.
I dig it. That's a good time to catch a monster brown trout, like over 20 pounds. And in a little 10-foot Jonny Boat, you may end up 8 miles out offshore. Just saying, bro. Just saying. I mean,
we'll see what happens. We'll see who's got more determination.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I got 45 pounds thrust to trolling motor.
Yeah.
See what happens.
That's funny. That'll be a cool one, though, man. I know we were chatting up at the show about, the salmon and trout fishing out on Lake Michigan and trying to get out. So that'll be a cool one, man. Like I told you guys, usually when I think trout and salmon, I'm fly fishing the tributaries coming up in off the lake during the spawn runs and things like that. And it's always a gas. And I used to do it out of my 16-foot Sylvan right around the harbors. But, I mean, I haven't pulled that thing out in probably 4 years. So
sure.
But, Yeah,
It's
man.
fun trying to manage 3 rods out of a kayak.
Heck yeah. Yeah.
I won't.
Can't beat it.
I'll stick. I mean, 10-foot kayak. I'm going to go back to 2.
Yeah.
3's just going to be a little too much, I think.
I think you could
mean,
do it. I think you could do it.
I do want to say though, I mean, if you are thinking about going to fish in Lake Michigan and the harbors and whatnot, really consider the safety aspect. That's big water and it is cold water. I have a dry suit. I have a handheld floating marine radio. I have flares. I have signaling devices. I am truly set up to fish that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the biggest thing. I know Susie's talked about it. Great Lakes kayak fishing. They do a tournament every fall for salmon, out around the harbors and the run and stuff.
That is a great tournament if you're looking to go out with people that have experience. So you have that buddy system, that safety. You don't fish together per se, but the safety factor is there, and all them guys out there know what they're doing. I fished that tournament once. It ran excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they put on a good show, but I mean, where I was going with that, I know Susie's told the story on her podcast with us as well, is one of the first events, they had a guy that fell out and ended up passing away. They didn't know the whole story. The guy even had an EPIRB on him. EPIRB didn't go off. Coast Guard found the guy. So, yeah, I mean, safety in big bodies of water, especially with cold water, is super important. Just because it's 70, 80 degrees out doesn't mean the water's the same. Cold water is going to send a shock through your body. I know Jason Ricketts on the Mixed Bag this past weekend, he was talking about cold water fishing and the safety aspect of things. And that was one thing he touched on is, cold water doesn't matter, because you hear the 120 rule. Well, if it's 80 degrees outside, but the water temp's 40, you're not safe.
Right.
It's like jumping in a bathtub full of ice cubes. Not going to work unless you're an Eskimo, probably. But, yeah, that's the biggest thing, man, when it comes to any big body of water, is just being safe. Marine radio, like you said, flares, there's the electronic EPIRBs. So if you do fall in the water, that thing gets wet, it sends off a signal to the Coast Guard saying that you're in distress, things like that, man. I mean,
if you've never done it, the buddy system
is absolutely crucial.
I mean, there's two really important things if you're going to go out and fish big bodies of cold water. To me personally, buddy system and a dry suit,
absolutely,
and a life jacket. I'll put in the third. Life jacket is just standard always. So,
that's a given.
But I mean, the buddy system, a dry suit, and a life jacket. I mean, that's going to give you the best chance if something goes wrong of coming home that night.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a good positive note. I love that. Why don't we end on that tonight?
Works for me.
Yeah, man. Sorry, guys. My voice isn't what it normally is. I'm struggling here. I've been battling a cold since last Tuesday. So hopefully next week I'm feeling a little bit better. I do have some guests coming up next week. I need to confirm 100% with them. But it's Crappie Junction. They do a lot of live streams at like different fishing shows and stuff, and they want to get into the kayak game. They've interviewed me multiple times on their live show, and I love what they're all about. So they're going to be drilling me with questions. So it's kind of going to be a little bit of a reverse, which is going to be good. I think it'll be interesting for some of those new to kayak fishing listeners that we got, and things like that. I mean, it'll be definitely cool to get their aspect. They've kind of watched the whole kayak game explode, but they've never really got into it themselves. And if that doesn't go through next weekend, I got another man on the back burner who fly fishes for pike and muskie, mainly muskie, out of a kayak. Pretty interesting.
He's pretty tall too.
He is, dude.
He's taller than you, man.
Was he? I mean, he told me I was taller, but I think that's because he wanted me to buy lunch, because he said the tall guy buys lunch. So I don't know. I think I might have got screwed on that deal, Austin. But yeah, man, it was good chatting with you. As
Appreciate
always,
you having
dude.
me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. If you ever got anything coming up, get a new Jonny Boat, something like that, dude, hit me up. You know, love to have you back. Looking forward to fishing with you this season and things like that, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. One last quick shout out to the Small Craft Outfitters. Got to thank them for helping me out and getting me set up. And thanks for this. I mean, this was a great time.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Absolutely. So that little video I played at the beginning, guys, that was part of our trailer. So I wanted to play that. We do some YouTube stuff. Obviously, all the podcasts go up there. But if you're not following us on YouTube, go over there, check us out. Click the subscribe button if you want to follow along. I knew Brad Hicks. I saw him in the chat. He does a lot of review videos and things like that. You know, different, I don't know, all kinds of stuff. Brad's always doing something cool. Once season fires back up, we're going to have more fishing trip videos. The one thing I did want to mention, Ketch. So with that whole thing going on this week, I know I saw a post from Duke, and I've talked to Duke, and they've been completely overwhelmed with orders because of the new rule changes. He is keeping up with orders. I saw a photo. They must have been sending out over 100 bump boards today, going out UPS. So the guys are working overtime at Ketch. So if you guys need a board, don't feel like, oh, if I order it, I'm going to be waiting 3 months to get it. Duke is pretty good about keeping production up, keeping stock up, so that stuff's getting shipped out. I know he's had a lot of questions, comments, things like that. He's been trying to get through all of them. So if you do have a question or a comment, feel free to reach out to Ketch Products, and Duke or the other gentleman in the office will get back to you as soon as possible. Just a quick shout out to JigMasters Jigs. If you guys are looking to get some new jigs, buzz baits, marabou hair jigs for smallmouth fishing, punch rigs, things like that, go on over to JigMasters. He's been gracious enough to give us a promo code to offer to our listeners, PNF20. You'll save 20%. And TRC Covers. And don't forget about the recycled plastics program. Take your used beat up plastic baits from this fishing season, throw them in a little Ziploc baggie, throw them in a empty coffee cup in your boat, get back home, throw them in a box, another bigger baggie, whatever, collect them, mail them to the address in the podcast show notes. I'll have one of the guys posted up here in the chat. So if you made it through, you can see the address. You're going to mail those to my man, Eric Richards, up in Pennsylvania. He takes those baits, melts them down into new baits, and he donates them to various chapters of Heroes on the Water. Just a cool way to give back to all our vets and first responders. So, Brad, thanks again, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. It was a good time.
Absolutely, man. I am going to lead us out with the video again, man. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Love you all. Hope everybody's healthy, staying safe from the good old coronavirus. And no, I do not have the coronavirus. I just have a common cold. So with that being said, guys, till next time, tight lines, smooth paddling. Hello, and welcome back to the Paddle and Fin podcast. I'm Brian.
It's Josh. Brian and
Jay.
Dustin Nichols.
It's Ricketts.
And I'm Brad.
Susie Roloff.
Sam Jones. Got Dan Perry with
The Bass Fishing for Noobs.
Final Cast.
Chasing the Tide Saltwater Segment Hero.
Adventures with Outdoor Woman.
The Reel Down on.
He's got
As Cyber Monday.
Oh, yeah, dude.
happy birthday, you listeners.
Oh, guys, this is a stud.
She is the giant.
Mr. Drew Gregory himself. Welcome, Drew.
Got it.
Go check out the website, guys. Paddle, the letter N, and fin.com. Also check out YouTube, youtube.com/paddle and fin. If If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest, feel free to email us at paddle, the letter N, and fin at gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're doing giveaways, announcements, things like that at Facebook and Instagram at Paddle and Fin. Shout out to our show supporters, Rocktown Adventures, Loveland Canoe and Kayak, Hammered Lures, Fish Mob Lures, TRC Covers, Ketch Products. Go to ketchproducts.com. You can put the Paddle and Fin logo right on your catch board. Don't forget to go over and pick up your JigMasters Jigs. Use promo code PNF20 and save 20% today. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. It helps grow the audience, helps others find our podcast. So please drop a 5-star rating in on the podcast platform you're listening on. Don't forget about the recycled plastics program, you guys. Take your used plastic baits, put them in an envelope, mail them to the address in the show notes. Our man Eric Richards at Hammered Lures melts those down, makes new baits, and donates them to various chapters of Heroes on the Water.